Let's talk about a couple ideas that might allow you to start developing your own sound as a musician. Hey everybody, my name is Travis Mark. I'm the host of the Musician's Mentor podcast and now this Musician's Mentor YouTube channel. Regardless whether you've been here before or not, welcome, and please do me a favor while you are here and hit that subscribe button. Okay, so before we jump into today's video, let me start by apologizing that there was no video yesterday. I've been a little bit under the weather, as I'm sure you can probably still tell, but yesterday I just wasn't in a position to do justice by a video. Nonetheless, today I'm going to try and make up for it by talking about some ideas that might help you develop your own sound as a musician. I want to start by saying that obviously this won't apply to everybody. Some people like to emulate their heroes and are okay with doing that. And if that is all you seek to do musically, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. However, if you do want to start finding your own sound, the thing that makes you you, and might actually want people to eventually book you versus the fact that you might sound like somebody else, here's a couple things that you can potentially implement into your practice regime or lifestyle that will possibly allow you to start finding that sound. The first thing I would say is absorb widely as much music as you possibly can so that you can get influences from different avenues and different genres and different artists. And then once you've absorbed enough and you feel like you've exposed yourself to enough different genres and different music, you can potentially filter that into what it is you're trying to achieve. So whether that's purely as a player or as an artist yourself, you at least have different inspiration and influence to draw from. Once that happens, start trying to think a little bit out of the box. Play some chords you don't usually play. Use progressions you wouldn't usually play. Try rhythms you wouldn't usually play. Sing in ways that you wouldn't naturally sing if you yourself are a singer. But try and do things to experiment so that you might, once again, find ways that you think are unique and different. And if that starts to happen and you are comfortable with it, or at least feel like you're onto something, you can really double down and hone in on whatever that different thing is. The main thing though is staying authentic and comfortable with yourself, because if it's not authentic, people will see through it. And if you're not comfortable, it can't be authentic. So obviously experiment and really open up those musical doors to places that you've maybe never been before, but just remember to keep it real. The third point I want to make is personal perspective is actually more important than you realize. Outside life experiences can affect your music and your musicality and your writing and your creativity. So rather than just always trying to copy things you hear or formulate things that you hear, take those outside elements and incorporate them into your artistic or musical endeavors. If you're angry, you play a certain way. If you're sad, you play a certain way. This is going to affect your writing and your playing. So think about if you like the way it's affecting it, and then again, hone in on that. Or if you don't, and if you don't, back away and keep experimenting like the previous point so that you can figure out what's working and what's not. Some of the greatest artists in the world have poured their hearts out to us over their careers. Don't be afraid to do the same. And even if you think that things are similar, maybe a relationship went bad, maybe a bad upbringing, maybe you lost someone close to you, whatever the case may be, you can write about it or at least create about it in a different way that isn't going to be identical as something that's already been done. And even if it is, you can approach it from different angles. From a sonic point of view, if you are really trying to be different, again, as long as you're trying to be authentic, feel free to try different palette choices, different pedals, different amps, different microphones, different pickups, different heads for drums. Whatever it is that gives you different in your exploration of trying to find your own sound, try it. Whether that means begging and borrowing for instruments that you don't usually experiment with, or trying to maybe mic things up in a different way to what you usually would, experiment. It really does all come down to that. But sonically, from a gear point of view, this is really easy. If you don't like this pedal, get rid of that pedal, buy a different pedal. If you don't like this guitar tuning, tune it differently. Don't be afraid to try different sticks, different textures, different colors, if you will, because eventually you will recognize something that is you, and you will know the instant you find it. And lastly, if you are at a point where you are playing live, try out these new sounds and voices and things in front of an audience, because you will soon see whether that's vibrating with them or not. Not to say that you need the approval, but if you are still experimenting and trying to find a sound that you feel is you, a great way to do this would be to get feedback from other people. Maybe that feedback is good and you know that you're onto something. Maybe it's bad, but you might still be onto something. Best way to do it is put it in front of people and see what they say. For me personally, when I first became obsessed with music, I found that playing along to my heroes was a great way to develop a sound. But I didn't want to just sound like carbon copies of my heroes. I wanted to sound like me. So I started pushing certain boundaries a little further, or pulling them back a little bit more. If I knew that somebody played a certain type of fill as a drummer, I would see how I could make that fill sound different with the identical rhythm. What could I voice it as differently? And this goes across the board for any instrument. It will work. Pick a hero, copy them, copy the next one, and hopefully eventually you've got enough copies that you do start to develop your own sound. A great benefit that comes from this is also the fact that you get to learn who your heroes were. You start to understand that certain players listened to these players before them, who listened to those players before them. Now, there are exceptions to the rule. You listen to a guy like John Entwistle from The Who. No one was playing like that. So this guy really developed a sound that has become copied for decades. But you could become the guy who gets copied for decades. So go out, explore, experiment. I wish you nothing but the best, and I will see you again next week.